Welcome to the Mr. Alex podcast. Today we have a very special person, my grandpa. And so we're going to be interviewing him, and now we're not going to ask our typical questions, but instead some stuff like what his childhood was like. So, what was your typical childhood day when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, uh, we had freedom to run around the block. There were no fences between houses, anything like that, and so we had full run of that. We played games. We played baseball, football, and make believe. It was the end of World War II, and so we, instead of playing cowboys and Indians, we played Nazis and Americans. So that was the kind of thing we did.
Okay, I know I told you to have the next one, but he kind of led into another question. So, World War II, as a child, how was that different than how a child would be today?
Wow. Well, you knew that we were at war with somebody, and you knew that somebody was slowly taking over the European continent. And everybody knew who the Nazis were, they knew who Hitler was, they knew Mussolini. We see these things on the Saturday shows and the news, and we'd hear about them. So we knew there's a tension there. And so I can tell you what some of the things that went on in our neighborhoods then. At that time, I would have been 5, 6 years old before the end of the war. And so we all knew what was going on. We had to practice at night, certain nights, pretending if we had an attack on Dallas. All the lights would have to go out in everybody's house. You pull down the blinds in case you have a candle inside. Spotlights in. You see spotlights going over the skies in Dallas. And if you didn't have your lights out, you have wardens who would come by and remind you. So we knew those possibilities existed, but it wasn't in high concern. Like right now, we feel pretty comfortable. That's the difference.
Okay. What was your favorite band? Music band.
What?
What was your favorite music band?
What was your favorite band growing up, music wise?
Oh, gee. Well, it depends on the age that I was. All the good music I heard, quite frankly, was on the radio when my mother listened to these soap operas. And I did enjoy that because they were deep feeling music. And so what did I listen to? Later on, can I push it up to the 50s?
Yeah.
Okay, in the 50s, the rock and roll era had come on stream. The black music had picked up and become a hot item because they had a certain freedom in their songs and what they did. And high school, I'm going to move on to high school real quick because that's the time when the Sportatorium, the city of Dallas, they held wrestling matches. But once a year they would have a rock and roll show. And they would have Little Richard, they would have Fats Domino, they'd have, no, I can't even think of who all right now because I'm nervous. But anyway, there would be the Little Richard, I can't think of them right now, mind block. But anyway, so there's 5 of us guys decided we would go down and see this. But you got to realize all these people I've named, they're black. So that was a real calling. You didn't buy your tickets till you got there, and the tickets were, I think, tickets were $1.75, and there's just mobs outside waiting to get inside. And to get inside, you had to stand there and kind of work your way up to the ticket office. And it was so crowded, you could honestly lift your feet up we were stuffed in that tight. And so anyway, that's how we got in. And then we got in, you look around, 97% black, and we little white boys, we went and sat in the very top row, we just kind of stayed anonymous, but the music was fabulous. So those are the guys, the early rock and roll dudes they were outstanding. So we did that twice. And, so anyway, that was the good music. That's the best music.
Okay, so going back to your childhood a little bit, were you like the obedient child, or were you like a rambunctious child? Or were you like somewhere in between?
Well, yes. I have to say I probably was in between because I always felt like I was going to do the right thing, and you know I hadn't really given my life to Christ at that time, but I knew God was the one who was guiding it. I don't know, I was just led some way. We went to Church Christ Sunday school in church, and so I was really very obedient. But every once in a while, you want to hear one of the stories?
Sure.
Okay. I did have a sense of humor back then. I was older than my little sister Marilyn, and so she was about 6, and I was about 8, and I thought it was going to be the funniest thing. She was in the other end of the house, and I got myself a little pail of water, and I filled it up with water. And then I got the door coming into the living room area, and I shut it so it was almost shut, but it wasn't. But it was enough. I got on a chair and I got this bucket and I put it on top. I've seen it in the movies. They're really funny.
It always works in the movies.
It always worked in the movies. So I called her down, Marilyn, come here quick. And she came running down the hall. He pushed that door open, and it came straight down here on the head, and water went all over the living room. So that's a little bit of my mischievous side, but
I'm
I'll
taking notes.
Don't do that again. Mother laid the story on me, but she didn't need to. Oh, that hurt. I felt really bad at what I'd done. And I did a couple other things like that to Marilyn, but I could spend all night on some of that stuff.
Right. Could you share your testimony?
Share my testimony?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like how you came to Christ?
How I came to Christ. I'll tell you what, finally, I always worried about it. Well, one thing I'm embarrassed to say that's what I worried about is I was worried about the end of the earth, the end of the world could come. Would I be left behind even though I knew who Christ was? But I hadn't, I was kind of like a doubting Thomas, I guess. I didn't have it all together and I couldn't convince myself, and I wasn't going to be a hypocrite at doing it. So some of my friends said, come on, Robert, let's go down, and I couldn't convince myself yet. So we were in a car double dating to Dallas and Vita Taylor. And we had been out to a dinner and some parties, and we were headed home. And so they started talking about Christ. Well, in the meantime, I decided I would take a nap. And so I was pretending to take a nap. I didn't, but I sat there and I listened to them talk of Christ as Savior. And, you know, I guess that's where I kind of convinced myself right then. I needed some. No, I can tell you one more story that really convinced me. We went on a picnic out to one of the local lakes, and Christine got in the side of the water, and her shoe got stuck, and in the meantime waves were coming in a little bit higher and higher, and something told me, leave it, don't do it. And Lynn got a little upset with me because I said I had this strange feeling. So we went back to our park bench, they were all concrete, and all of a sudden the winds were coming in, and you could see the waves building up. You could see some of the sailboats getting knocked over. You saw one truck had the backside thrown around. Hail started coming down, and the hail was coming down in big, 1-inch size balls. And a mother was sitting over there with her children, and all she could do was hover them in her arms and hold on to that concrete, and her back was getting pelted with it. And I looked at, oh man, what is going on? And so help me, I looked way up there and I could see this one piece of hail coming down. It came down and the wind swept it, and I thought, so help me, right between the eyes, it got me. And I was lucky and I was blessed. So that I had been asking God for a sign, something dynamic for over a week.
I don't think that's what you had in mind though. Or was
He
it?
did. It worked. I mean, he gave me the sign that I wanted. I wanted something strong that I was concerned about my family, but I didn't want anybody to get hurt. And I mean, I had these conversations every day riding home from work. I'd have my conversations, and it was all quite internally. And anyway, I think that was when I decided, Robert, it is time. And that week, I called the pastor at Highland Park Methodist Church and told him I wanted to be baptized. And usually, like, I'd have a notice and put it in paper and all that. But he said, "Yeah, you mean this Sunday?" I said, "Yes." And so we was. And so, wow, I was nervous. I was going in like a first date ever. That's the way I was feeling. But anyway, I knew it was the right direction and everything. And so that's when I formally accepted Christ as my Savior.
What was your favorite subject in school?
Drafting. It was in high school. We didn't have computers doing the drawings. You do it by hand. And A&M had a competition for the state of Texas for drafting contest. Who had the best? So anyway, my professors submitted it. I was making A's in that class, and at the end of the year, they were going to have an awards program for all the football players, all these heroes, and baseball, that one this and one that, one that. And so help me, the week before that came, my prof called me up to the front and showed me that I had gotten third place in the state of Texas. And I said, thank heavens. I wanted to get here before the award program. And I told him that, and he just looked at me like, "You crazy, you knew it was coming?" So anyway, so that's why he was my favorite. And he would let me come in at lunch and just come in and do my own drawings, and I would go outside and run blueprints from the sun shining through onto this ammonia and print up my own drawings. And so he was a good guy.
So the typical like childhood dream jobs today are like being an astronaut, being a doctor, being like a dinosaur. So like what were like the typical dream childhood, like I want to be this when I grow up in your generation?
Architect.
Architect.
No question. I built models, and I love to do that. Sometimes I'd be a scale models for my little cars that look like the old historic times, and I just wanted to build things. And so I wanted to be an architect. So everything I took was on one goal, and to be the architect. Some of it sounds crazy, you go all the way through college, and then you're graduating, you know what you're gonna do. I never question what I do. Some of the guys saying, what are you gonna do? I don't know what kind of job or whether I wanna really be an architect, And so I can't even comprehend them going all the way through college and not knowing. But yes, loved it.
Okay, what do you remember about the Vietnam War?
Bad. I guess that's the best way to describe it. It was bad. It was terrible. I know I was too young, to be going in. Wait, Vietnam. No, I'm thinking about it a little earlier. Maybe that's when I was in college. Lots of the people were finding every excuse to not be drafted because it was a war that felt like we couldn't win. So, some of them got married, and they won't take you if you're married or if you have children. And I ended up chose I didn't want to go, but my dad had cancer, so I took. I was going to have to go in because I had just been re-identified as A1, so I decided I'm going back to grad school and take all the classes I wanted to always take, so that I would be here when Dad passed away. And it's exactly what happened. My very first semester on my thesis, I got the notice that you need to come in the hospital. So that's my little interesting comment about the war. And I heard from many people about the Vietnam War. They just thought it was terrible because we were fighting a war that we could not win.
Okay. What was your favorite thing to do as a kid?
As a what? As a teen?
A child, or what? Yeah.
Well, play soccer. Yeah, well, I just created our own team so we could play soccer. What else? Favorite thing to do? Play some kind of sports, when I'm not in school and everything. I guess that was my favorite thing. I helped Bobby coach. She had the girls team, and so she always drugged me places. She goes, come on with me. So I went up there and I did the tossing the ball out, hitting the ball to the different girls so they could practice passing, picking it up and throwing home. And the neatest thing was that the catcher was a good-looking blonde. So anyway, don't give me that look. Anyway, that was a byproduct. But anyway, that's where I developed confidence in baseball, handling things, and umpiring, whatever. That's some of my, I guess those are my favorite things. Oh, going dancing. Bobby and I would go dancing. And I didn't know how to dance. She didn't know how to dance, but some of the military guys said, don't worry about it, just get on the dance floor and go. So we would go to the Veterans of Foreign War club that her mother was members of. And we would go out and hang out and listen to the music, and we would just dance up a storm. And I learned how to dance, and so I continue learning to dance.
Alright, so this was not an original question, but like right before the interview, you had talked a little about your mom's life.
Yeah.
And how it like differed from yours. Can you go into a little bit more detail?
About mother?
Yeah.
Wow. Quick background is that her mother had a chance to get married, and she already had some children. I don't know the story there, but the guy she was going to marry, she said, I will marry you on one condition, and that is if you take these children and me every Sunday to church. And indeed he did. Every Sunday he would take them to church, and he didn't typically always go. So he'd take them in a Model T, drive them up to church, trying to remember where it was. Lisbon Church of Christ, I think it was. So anyway, so that was her, and her idea was that children need to learn of Christ, and that's what mother learned. And she, every night before going to bed, they would say the prayer we all have heard, now I lay me down to sleep, praise the Lord, my soul to keep. And so that's how my mother grew up. And she knew you had to have responsibilities, because you lived on a farm and everybody had to help doing their thing. And so, she knew that was part of her job, and so she would do her part. And then after that, after she was married and we children came along, she continued that, in a Christian, living in a Christian manner. And that's how she dealt herself, acting as a Christian should. And well, can't think of any particular details to tell you, and I'll think of it just after y'all leave, probably.
Alright, I have another question about pre-you. Or do you know if we're related to anyone famous?
Do I what?
Do you know if we're related to anyone famous?
Do I relate to anyone famous? No, I do not know if I am related to anyone famous. Elijah's won. He's won a bunch of medals. And you've done a good job on all your photos. You've been in Swan Lake and ballet. So yeah, yes, it's family. And that's exciting. And your mom and dad, you guys are so lucky to have someone who's so Christian based. I mean, I am so I can't tell you how proud I am of your mother, because I didn't know her that well yet. But golly, I know Scott, and he does his fair share too, and y'all are blessed. So,
Kaylee's got the next question.
okay.
Who was your role model when you were younger?
Who was my role model? Wow. Well, let's say my dad, he always worked hard doing the right thing. And he's the one who was willing to help me on my car. I had to get my own money to buy a car, and he would help me go out and help work on it. And we would go to wrecking yards sometimes to get extra parts and stuff. And I didn't know until later on, some of the other high school buddies said, "You don't know how lucky you are to have your dad help you out like he does." And we'd go out there and sit out till late at night working on the cars. So yeah, he's a good role model. And then other than that, I went to success seminars, and that's where you go. That's where you get your influence. And they would have some of the top football players come and speak to you. They'd have some of the top successful business people. And so there's a lot of people that I kind of, I gained information from that gave me guidance. So there's a lot of people, but I'll stick with family first.
Okay, so we have two things behind us, and I actually planned one of them, but not the other one. So right behind us is a TV. So what did you think when like TV first came around? Did you think it was like just this trend that would pass over? Did you think it was like super cool, or did you think it was like from the demon?
Oh man, I thought it was so super cool. Yes, you know, I would listen to the radio. I listened to the radio on Saturday. I found my own radio station, and they didn't have any football stuff. But I do my own thing on that. But then my grandmother, Granny Murray, she ended up getting an Admiral TV, black and white, but they had baseball games on it, and they had Captain Midnight, and they had Sky King and all this stuff. And no, I thought that was fabulous. And we walk up the street on Tuesday nights where one of our neighbors had a color TV, and so we would go up there and watch wrestling matches. And no, I thought this is good. So they'll just get to be a little better. And then sure enough, these were you had to have bulbs that would fit into your TV. And to get those bulbs, one burned out, you could go up to 7-Eleven. They would sell different size bulbs for your TV. And so I thought, hey, these are getting to be a better and better deal. And so, yeah, no, I thought, man, it's going to be better and better, but I didn't expect this large screen stuff, but I love them, and now I just want to keep better and better. So that's where I think we should always do, try to make things better than you found them.
We have 2 more questions, and normally how this would work is I would ask the funny one last, but the one I was about to ask might have us get up, so I'm gonna ask the funny one first, and then the one. So, if your shoes had to be made,
I'm already laughing. I'm waiting to hear what it is.
if your shoes had to be made out of one type of like meat that you would eat, what would it be? Like sandwich meat or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's pretty funny, all right. What? Boy, that's I'm trying to come up with a funny answer. Make it. What would I have it made out of? That's the most stupid question I think I have ever heard.
The last ones tend to be pretty.
Okay. I'm trying to think of some large sandwich meat that you could wrap over one side to the other. What do they make moccasins out of? That's leather. Huh. Well, anyway, it is a pretty funny question, so I'm gonna say I'd get a large sheet of luncheon meat and wrap it around and be able to run fast though in case some animal comes after you wanting you shoot him.
Okay, so my last question is there are paintings behind us, and they may not know this, but you painted all of them.
Correct.
Do you have a favorite painting? No, it doesn't have to be behind us.
Of these,
Well, it doesn't have to be of these, just in your house. What is the favorite one that you painted? And we can get up and go to it if you want.
oh man, I've done some that were black and white to show the whole concept is that nothing's really black and white except numbers, and I have binary numbers running across it. But let me look. Of these, that's the Amish country, and I love that's just a classic, clean picture right there. That catches the moods, and these I just love water, and so these are pretty great. This one has an interesting composition to it. It's all black and white. It's got black and white contrast, black to white, and then it's kind of like colorful rain coming down. And you notice they don't all line up. That's nature doesn't do that, and so they just kind of shift off with little different colors and different straight lines, and so that's one of my favorite too. Though you want the favorite one?
Sure.
It is in my Bible right now, and I carry it in case I have a chance. It's right here, Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. It's a beautiful thing, and I've got the full verses right there. You know, there's a time for all things, and time for birth, time to die, you know, time to plant, time to harvest. And so, and then time for war, time for peace. So you have all of that shown, and here's the clock. You'll notice there's no name, no arrows on it. So there's a time for all things. And then I have each of the 4 seasons shown here. So it has a message, and I think it's a good composition. This was the first picture. Maybe more than you want. This is because of your mom. The time she asked all of us one day about what we wish we had done in life, and I told her, I wish I had continued oil painting. And so I left it at that, but so help me, when the next birthday or Christmas came, she had gotten me a gift certificate to go get that, and she gave me a blank canvas. And that started all of my paintings again, which I always wanted to do. So, that is it.
Well, thank you.
My pleasure.